Airports always feel like a crossroads. People leaving, people arriving, lives intersecting for a moment before moving on. That day, I thought I was seeing my wife off on a short business trip. It should have been routine, polite, maybe even sweet. Instead, it became one of the most humiliating moments of my life. We arrived early, parked near the terminal, and I offered to walk with her to the check-in counter. That's when she looked at me, a mixture of impatience and irritation on her face, and said words I'll never forget. "Don't walk with me. You'll embarrass me." I froze, the suitcase slipping slightly from my hand. I blinked, thinking maybe I had misheard. "Excuse me?" I asked. She didn't flinch. She straightened her shoulders, turned her chin slightly upward, and said it again. "Don't walk with me. You'll embarrass me." The terminal seemed to blur around me. People rushing by, announcements over the PA system, families hugging. It all faded into the background as the weight of her words sank in. She wasn't joking. She wasn't flustered. She was deliberately insulting me, publicly, in an airport full of strangers. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I paused, taking a slow breath, feeling the shock settle into cold clarity. This wasn't just a bad mood. This wasn't impatience. This was disdain. Her eyes flicked toward me, searching, maybe expecting a reaction, a whimper, a protest, a plea. But I had none of that left for her. Instead, I nodded slowly, as if considering her request. "All right," I said softly, almost calmly. "I won't walk with you." She looked momentarily triumphant, expecting some kind of breakdown, some humiliation in response to her words. But I turned, took my suitcase, and walked in the opposite direction, away from the check-in counter, away from her control, away from the life she had been undermining for months. I didn't go far, just far enough to reclaim my dignity. I watched her stride toward the counter, heels clicking, head high, confident. She didn't know that her attempt to embarrass me had backfired completely. I wasn't broken. I wasn't humiliated. I was free in that moment from someone who had no respect for me. Weeks before, I had noticed the signs, the long work trips, the whispered phone calls, the small lies that piled up into a mountain I could no longer ignore. I had suspected she was seeing someone else. That suspicion had grown into quiet observation, patience, and preparation. I had made peace with the idea that the life I thought we shared was already fractured, maybe beyond repair. But her words at the airport confirmed everything. She didn't care about my feelings, my pride, or even basic decency. She cared only about herself, her image, and her comfort. And in that instant, I realized that staying would only prolong humiliation and betrayal. I walked through the terminal, passing families, travelers, and strangers who didn't know the story unfolding in front of them. My mind was clear, almost serene. Betrayal had a way of twisting the world into chaos, but clarity comes when you refuse to react the way the betrayer expects. She noticed me across the concourse, probably expecting me to chase after her, to protest, to beg. But I didn't. I simply smiled faintly, calm, composed, and turned toward the nearest exit. Over the next few weeks, I quietly began reclaiming control over my life. I reviewed our finances, separated accounts, documented her actions, and slowly detached emotionally. Her insults, her public disdain, her betrayal, they no longer had power over me. I had prepared for this moment, and now I was living it deliberately. She called later that evening, frantic, apologetic, trying to explain that she didn't mean it and that she was just stressed. I didn't answer. I didn't need her excuses. The moment of truth had already occurred. The airport, the words, the dismissal, they had shown me who she really was. Months later, when the divorce was finalized, I looked back at that airport moment and realized it wasn't just a humiliation. It was a turning point. The sentence, "Don't walk with me, you'll embarrass me," had been intended to wound, but it instead gave me clarity, resolve, and the courage to walk away from a marriage built on deception and disrespect. The lesson I learned is simple but profound. Betrayal and humiliation are powerful, but only if you let them control you. By refusing to react as she expected, by calmly reclaiming my dignity, I took the first step toward freedom, empowerment, and a life unshackled from her betrayal. Sometimes the world tests you in the most public, shocking ways, and sometimes the best response is not confrontation or anger, but quiet, deliberate self-respect. At that airport, with all eyes unknowingly on us, I chose me. I walked away, and I never looked back.